Hello?
Hi, Steve.
Hello? Hi,
Hello.
Sarah.
Hi. Thank you, Sarah, for your help.
No problem. Hopefully, folks aren't having trouble getting connected. I went with whatever settings Jim had on already.
Okay. I
So,
don't polling option at the bottom, but maybe that just pops up when it's time to vote.
I have the polls on
Okay.
my end. So let me do a quick test and see. I think I can just, let me show the first question and we'll make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
Okay, I'm going to end that. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I thought as people arrive, we could share in the chat our names and the local church that we are representing. That's just one way we can keep track of our participants. Hi, Mary Jane.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good. It's good to see
Hi, Mary
you.
Jane.
Hi.
How you doing?
Well, as long as this thing keeps working, I'll be doing fine. Sarah knows that I'm very technically challenged,
I hear you.
as in not the sharpest knife in that drawer, for sure. Put this thing down a little more.
So Mary Jane, one way we can help keep track of who's attending the meeting is to use the chat feature. And folks can type in the chat their name and what church they are representing.
Okay, as long as I can keep up with it and
And
still take minutes for whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, we can save the chat, so that could be a record.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
And we're also recording the meeting, Mary Jane, so that you can review this meeting again to help with your notes.
Okay, that'll be great. I won't have to keep saying, wait a minute, who said that?
Right. And Sarah has volunteered graciously to help with tech support. So she will be running the voting process using the polls. So thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Okay, then what did we decide to do about a quorum? Are we just going to declare a quorum?
Yeah, I noticed
That's
we
what
did that last year. We can vote to suspend the rules requiring a quorum if we don't attain it. So Sarah, that might be a new poll question to add. That would be maybe the first poll question if we have to do that. I see we have Scott with us and Chad. Welcome.
Hello, Sarah. This is Don Chappelle from St. John, Cumberland.
Welcome.
Hi, Don.
Hello.
As you gather, feel free to type in the chat your name and the congregation that you are representing. That's one way it will help us keep track of our participants today.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. As we gather, I invite you to let us know of your presence with us by typing in the chat your name and the congregation that you are representing. Good afternoon. We'll get started in about 7 minutes. Welcome. Good afternoon. We will get started in about 6 minutes, and as we're gathering, we invite folks to type in the chat name and the congregation that you are with. It's good to see everyone. Welcome. As we're gathering here, I invite you to share in the chat your name and the congregation that you are representing. And we will get started in about 4 or 5 minutes. Good afternoon. We will start in a couple of minutes. As we're waiting, I invite you to let us know your name and the congregation where you hold membership. You can type that information in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. That will help us know who is present for today's meeting. So we will give people a little bit more time to log in before we begin. It's good to see everyone. Good afternoon. We are glad to be gathered here today. Thank you for taking the time to get onto Zoom again. If you've already been Zooming today, hope that you are feeling well, and we will start very soon. We want to be sure people have enough time to log in. Please share your name and the church you are a member of in the chat, and that will help us keep track of who's participating in the meeting today. I also encourage you to use the chat in general. It's a great way to interact. You can share questions that you have there. You can share information with us in the chat feature. We'll get started in another minute. Welcome, everyone. I am Sarah Lund, and I serve as the pastor at First Congregational United Church of Christ in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm also honored to serve as your association president, completing my first year of a 2-year term. And so I will be facilitating the meeting today. And we all are Zoom experts by now. But just want to remind us of staying muted. Unmute yourself when you wish to share something. I want to thank Sarah for volunteering to be our tech support, and so she will help guide us through the voting process using the poll feature on Zoom. But feel free to interact with each other using the chat feature. Let us know your name and the church you are with in the chat, and that will help us track who's participating today. We have an exciting agenda today, a lot of important decisions to make, and so I thank you for your commitment to fulfilling this covenant that makes us one. I would like to call the meeting to order and share an opening prayer. And this prayer is inspired by the words of the late John Lewis. Many of you may have seen the essay that he wrote that was published on the day of his memorial service. And so these words come from that essay. He says, "Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring." I think John Lewis had very similar beliefs that many of us share in the United Church of Christ. And so that invitation to follow our heart's desires and to fulfill this calling that each one of us has to follow Jesus and to live a life that shows the way of peace and love and nonviolence is really a beautiful invitation. So let us pray. God, we thank you for your presence with us in the people gathered on this Zoom meeting, and also with all of our lay people and lay leaders, with all the authorized clergy and ministers in the Southeast Association. Help us to be faithful to your calling, to live our best lives, to be people of love and peace and nonviolence, to be generous as we seek to share the love of Jesus. Bless us and guide us in our meeting today, and remind us of our connection to you and one another. We pray this in the spirit of love that makes us one. Amen. Again, welcome to the Southeast Association meeting for 2020. We gathered virtually in the spring for what we called our fellowship time. It was not an official meeting. A lot of us were still pretty new with Zoom at that point, but now we're all experts. And we had the really good experience led by our conference staff of doing our conference annual gathering online. And so I think that gave us a little bit of encouragement that we could hold our business meeting online. And so thanks for your presence here, and thank you to Sarah, who's doing our tech support. We now want to see if we are able to establish a quorum. And so I've asked each of you to put your name and your church name in the chat. And so that's one way we can see if we have a quorum. And if we don't, last year we did not. We voted to suspend that rule so that we could continue with the meeting. So I'm going to ask others on the executive committee if you can help see if we've met the quorum requirement. I think Mary Jane is looking at the
Okay. We have 20 people who have checked in and 15 churches represented.
Okay, so I do not think that meets the numbers required for a quorum,
No, it does not.
but we can, as we did last year, vote to suspend that rule so we can proceed with the meeting. So I wonder if there is a motion to do so.
Don Zabel, I move to suspend the quorum requirement for this meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that, John Heckman.
And so we are going to see if we can post a voting mechanism for that vote. So we thank you for your patience, your grace, and your courtesy.
Okay, here's the wording that I put in earlier for this. Check and see if that's okay.
Motion to suspend standing rules for quorum requirement. So yes, I think that meets our needs. So you can vote. Do you approve that we suspend our rule for quorum, or do you oppose? And then we can proceed.
It's not showing up on my screen.
You might need to swipe your screen if you're on an iPad or an iPhone. Sometimes the voting poll shows up on a different location.
I'm only one, but how do we vote if there's two people on the line?
You can always put your vote in the chat, I think. If you're having trouble with the poll feature, please do voice your vote using the chat feature. And that way we can tell who you are and what your vote is.
Okay. I am going to try to track for us the totals. Right now we have 24 of 29, 24 of 30. It sounds like someone else just joined. And I see an additional yes in the comment.
Okay. Looks like we are going to move ahead with the meeting. Yes, excellent. Thank you all very much. Mary Jane is our registrar, and she is going to ask you all if you had a chance to review the 2019 minutes that were emailed out.
Those minutes were one of your 3 attachments that went out earlier. Hopefully everyone's reviewed them and can give us suggestions if there are any needs to alter those. And if not, we would take a motion to approve them.
Let's see, somebody is sharing their screen. I don't know if that was intentional.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, and that's another voting poll that will be brought up on your screen. And if you can't access that, feel free to make your vote known in the chat.
Sarah, can you tell me who seconded?
Joey.
Thank you.
We have 25 out of 30 votes in. Is everyone able to access the poll?
We have a couple of votes in the chat as well. If you're joining us, welcome. We are asking you to share your name and your church in the chat. And let us know of your presence with us today.
20.
In the chat, it mentions that there are 2 people who are not current voting attendees as they are members of Metanoia this time. So our total would not be the complete 30.
Our total, we're at 31 now, so the voting total in the chat would be, or in the poll would be 29. We have 25 of 29. Can I go ahead and end the poll?
I think so.
Okay. Just let me know when folks have had enough time.
Great. Approve the minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary Jane, for your good work. We'll now move into our sharing of our reports, beginning with the report from our Committee on Ministry Chair, Peter Fry.
Thank you, Sarah. And hopefully everyone got the written report that was submitted. Kind of got just lost in the translation. So I'm gonna just be brief, just to mention just a few things. We've been working faithfully, meeting with those who are pursuing God's call for them in ministry and supporting them. Now, meeting has changed in format due to the pandemic to online meetings, but we're still finding ways to do the same work that has been needed in the past. We've had several individuals who are seeking membership and discernment status come to be with us, as well as continuing to support the current members in discernment from previous years. And we ask you to all lift them in prayer and support in their journeys in whatever ways that you can as congregations. We've also had several individuals come to us from beyond our denomination seeking partnership status, partnership standing, as well as privilege of call. We've assisted several individuals who are in their transfers in and out of our association, as well as completing professional endorsement. We've participated in transitions of ministry with congregations, whether it's installation of new ministers or celebrations of lifelong ministries. Our work includes recommendation of an ecclesiastical council for individuals, as well as in the case of this meeting for a congregation. I personally wish to thank all of our committee members for their work, and those who are beyond our committee, who have helped to assist us in our work. And I am reminded also of one of our former members, Bob Craig, who did pass away this past fall. I did want to lift him up in that, in addition to his many roles in ministries that he did outside of our work, he worked diligently, faithfully, compassionately as a member of our committee, and he is missed. Please do know that we, as a committee, continue to be a resource and support for all of the good work that's going on in this association. And we're more than pleased to continue to serve in the coming year to do that in whatever way is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions for Peter? Okay, Mary Jane, I invite you to share a update or report from the registrar.
We have had several people transfer in and out of Southeast Association. We've welcomed new pastors to several churches, and we're in the process of looking at 2 people who are interested in privilege of call. We've had, I think, 3 pastors transfer out of Southeast Association, and we just urge you, if you make any changes in your work as a pastor, if you have anything that you would like included in your personnel file, to please send it to me. And you all have my email account because you've all been getting emails from me. So, but I can give it to you again. It's maryjholcraft@gmail.com. So if you have any new endorsements or anything you would like included in your personnel file, if you can send those to me electronically or send me a hard copy, we can get those into your file. And that's about all I have at this point.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Any questions for her? Okay, we'll move on to our treasurer's report from Margie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay, I feel like I'm on the governor's press conference. The balance of in the account as of May the 1st of 2019, which was the last time we met, was $2,039.90. We had 2 small checks go out. We have had a balance in there from the eviction relief fund. It is $3,727.50, which leaves an ending balance, cash balance in the checking account, of $5,388.67. And that's as of August the 1st.
Thank you, Margie. Any questions for Margie about the finances? Okay. I wanted to share with you all for the President's report. There are 2 main areas that I'm focusing the work of this role. One is how the Southeast Association connects to the Indiana-Kentucky Conference. And Reverend Chad Abbott, I'm glad you're with us today, and Shannon, welcome. Chad convenes a gathering of the presidents of all the associations in the Indiana-Kentucky Conference, and we meet online. And so that is a time where we can share updates, also best practices, and get support for one another. We also are part of the IKC through the annual gathering, which many of you participated in. At our recent gathering, we passed a really important resolution for the IKC to be an anti-racist conference. And within that was an amendment that asked associations to require anti-racism training for authorized clergy. And so that is an action that we hope to follow up on in today's meeting. We also connect to the IKC through the mental health ministries. I serve on that team for mental health and WISE ministries of the conference, and invite your local church to think about becoming a WISE church for mental health. Another way we support and work with the conference is around clergy peer support, and you will hear Chad talk more about that today. But that has been a deep desire of mine, is how can our association connect more with the support from our conference and our denomination. Now, within the Southeast Association, we have the practice of the Lenten breakfast, and we were so looking forward to our Lenten breakfast series. We had a great series planned around this idea of God's home and highlighting our eviction ministries. Sadly, because of safety and health, we decided not to meet in person for those breakfasts. But we did have chaplains say that they wanted to host a breakfast, and they even had it organized at one of our local hospitals. So I am hopeful that in the future, as we have these association events, that we will think creatively about how to include more people. We also have this shared mission, the eviction ministry, which I'm excited about. And you heard in the report that there are funds in that ministry. And as our federal support that gives people financial ways to pay the rent and protects them from eviction, as that is in jeopardy, we may need to draw upon these funds. And so please be mindful that that is a resource. Sarah and Shannon are both part of that ministry, and they're on the call. So if you want to learn more about that, be in touch with them. Also, I've been serving on the Committee on Ministry, which is a very hardworking group that seeks to serve the association. And so in these ways, I have done my best to lead our association. And my hope for the coming year is that we will continue to feel connected to one another and to really strengthen our sense of fellowship. And I'm hopeful in what Chad will share about an opportunity for us to support our authorized clergy and getting some peer support. So any questions for me? Okay. I've enjoyed my first year serving with the Southeast Association, and I want to thank you all. I also would like to see if we could have a vote to accept these reports. And I believe that is another poll vote that you will be invited to participate in. A motion to accept all reports. Committee on Ministry, the registrar, the treasurers, and the presidents.
You need someone to make that motion?
Yes.
I will, John Heckman.
Thank you, John.
Second, Alan Blackburn.
Thank you, Alan. So again, you can vote in the poll, and if that's not working for you, please vote in the chat. I see we've had a few more people join us. Welcome. We're really glad you are here. Please put in the chat your name and the church you are representing.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Siri wants to vote too.
We are at 26 of 30 voting participants in the poll system, and I see one vote in the chat.
Okay, I think we can move forward. Thank you all. Now for the business items that we have prepared today, very exciting. Our first one is going to be presented by the Chair of Committee on Ministry, Peter Fry.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. First of all, just as a presentation, representatives of Metanoia have met with our association's Committee on Ministry a number of times. And in doing so, they've expressed a sincere desire by the congregation to fully participate in covenant with our association of churches and with the Greater United Church of Christ. The Southeast Association Committee on Ministry has verified that all the requirements for membership of a congregation within the Southeast Association have been met by Metanoia, and all the documents are in possession by our association through our registrar. The Southeast Association Committee on Ministry therefore recommends that Metanoia be examined by association church membership by an ecclesiastical council of the association of the Southeast Association of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference. I guess at this time, hopefully people have had an opportunity to see the video that was posted. It was a little bit of a challenge to get it out there, but we did. And we do have, I think we have two individuals who are representing the congregation. We have Terry Daniels, who is the pastor, as well as Mark Lynch, who is the president of the congregation. So.
Thank you very much. Well, this is definitely unique. It might be the first virtual experience of an ecclesiastical council for a congregation. And since we do have members of the church present, would invite you to share with us a very brief comments. And I especially was inspired by your covenant. And so it's a brief one. And so maybe that's an appropriate thing to start with as you begin to share briefly about your desire to join the UCC through the Southeast Association.
Terry, do you have a copy of that covenant in front of you? You're still muted, Terry.
Here we go. No, I don't.
Okay. So,
You?
yeah, I do. I have what I believe is the most recent one. I know that all of us who are dealing with electronics and electronic files oftentimes get things switched around. So I've pulled it up. So Terry, please just jump in. I know that we added a couple of things at Reverend Abbott's suggestion. Just as the president of the Governance Council of Metanoia, I do want to thank Peter and the Committee on Ministry and Alan and Dennis and everybody who was involved with that. It was a fun little circus that we all went through together, trying to jump through those hoops. But here's our covenant that we approved at our February business meeting. Recognizing that we share with the United Church of Christ a covenant with God as revealed in Jesus Christ, and with God's mission for the healing and redemption of the world, and with God's desire that all shall be one, we agree to work diligently with the various expressions of the UCC, local congregations, the association, the conference, the national level, and the church's global mission. At the association and conference level, we will collaborate in ministries of shared interest. We will also provide representation at annual meetings and be prepared to vote on church business. At the conference, national, and global level, we will contribute to our church's wider mission, and whenever possible, we will provide representation at the biennial General Synod. Finally, we will seek to build relationship with one another, in which rights and responsibilities are respected, diverse views are honored, and advice and counsel are carefully considered. In short, we will strive to be a good partner. In the hope that one day the love of God will indeed make us one, we hereby affirm this covenant with the United Church of Christ.
Thank you very much. So the Metanoia community has been through a very thorough process with the Committee on Ministry. And if you had a chance to review the video, it's been a multi-year journey to get to this moment. And so what I suggest is that we call forth a motion to accept them into membership. And then before the vote, we can have our deliberation and our questions. Does that sound appropriate to you all? Okay.
Yes, I make a motion that we accept Metanoia into our conference and the United Church of Christ.
So it's a motion to accept Metanoia into membership in the Southeast Association. Is
I'll
there a
second it.
second, Steve? Okay, now we will have a discussion. And you can ask questions of the Committee on Ministry about the process, or you can ask of Mark or Terry. Joey.
Unlike a lot of new church starts, they're sort of far along with the journey, but they're still a new church start. What support have we put in place, are we planning to put in place to help them as they continue to grow as a new church start?
Thank you for that question. Is there a member of our new church start committee on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call. Scott Simmons from Faith United Church of Christ. I was the chair of the new church start committee. This is the first time that we've ever had something like this. And so I just want to share real briefly about the process that we as a committee took before we met with Metanoia. We reached out to the Michigan conference and got one of their documents that we shared with the Committee on Ministry. And in that, there was 4 categories of types of, I don't want to say new church starts, but churches that would become part of a association and a conference. One of them could be a start from scratch church. But one of the categories, and the category that we ultimately concluded and agreed with Metanoia, is that they were already a church looking to affiliate. And so I think that from the perspective I had and that we seem to have as a group, this wasn't necessarily a new church start. It was a church that had been, I believe, meeting for 4 years up until this point. And then there in the process, there was, for the Michigan document that we used, there was some requirements for a church to be associated with the conference to have like a mentor church, just so that they could get to know the UCC. We felt that that was unnecessary because Terry Daniel in particular has a long history with the UCC, having led the new church member at classes at St. Peter's and many other things. I'd let Terry speak for himself. So with that in mind, there wasn't a particular, I think, process that we had set up to mentor them as a new church start. While we feel like that would be necessary if, say, Terry and Mark and the group were just starting from scratch sort of thing at this point. Hope that helps.
I just like to say that in this process, we felt a lot of support from the New Church Start Committee, with whom we met more than once. I met separately with Scott once or twice. And I don't know if Ben Keckler is on this Zoom meeting or not, but Ben met with me for lunch about once a month for several months to sort of mentor me through the process of what are the steps we need to take, what are the requirements we need to make. It's one thing to feel, which I think we did, that we were legitimate as a church, but it's another to meet all the expectations of a covenant relationship with an association and a conference at a national level in the UCC. So it was very helpful to get some guidance about those things. And although at times it was a long and arduous process, we are glad to have completed it with the help of the Committee on Ministry and the New Church Start Committee.
Thank you. That was an excellent question. And thank you, Scott, for your response. Any other questions for the committee or for the church? Alice?
I'm just curious. I'm wondering whether or not you will continue to, this is directed at Terry or Mark as representative of Metanoia. You will continue to meet at Broadway Methodist, or if you are likely to seek a UCC church to continue your ministry at?
That's a good question, and it's not one that I can really answer. We haven't thought about it a lot at this point. By the way, it was not Broadway United Methodist, it was Broad Ripple, which is a different location. And we chose that location, one, because I happen to know the pastor there, and it was not far from where most of us lived, and we knew that they had space available. So it was, in that sense, convenient. I don't know that we would rule out a UCC church. I'm not sure what we'll do next. You know, right now we're meeting, as many are, by Zoom, and we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future. But that's a bridge we'll have to cross at some point. Yes.
Thank you. Other questions? Theological questions? Covenantal questions?
Please, no theological questions.
Oh, okay.
I would just like to say that I've been very impressed with Steve and Mark and other people that Committee on Ministry has talked to. They have put in the work and really, really made an effort to meet all the recommendations and set themselves up.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Mark or Terry, would you like to add anything before we call a vote?
No, it's just that we look forward to being on board. It's been a long journey. Happy to make it, and want to continue making it with you.
And I'll just say that I appreciate your willingness to, in this time of pandemic, to not postpone us and put us off, because we continue to meet, and we just appreciate that. I think I'll also add, we're referred to as Metanoia pretty commonly by us as well, but since it's going to be an official vote, we are officially Metanoia Church of Transformation. So if whoever the secretary is making those notes, that would be.
Metanoia Church of Transformation. Very good.
That's correct. Yeah,
thank you. So I don't see any more questions at this time. So being led by the Holy Spirit, we will call the vote. And you should see the vote poll option or the chat option. The motion is to accept Metanoia Church of Transformation into membership of the Southeast Association of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference.
I am seeing 27 votes in the poll and 1 in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now. I think we've got our results.
On behalf of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference, Southeast Association, Metanoia Church of Transformation, we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very exciting. Look forward to a long and fruitful partnership in shared covenant. Thank you. Thank you to the Committee on Ministry and the New Church Start Committee, and to the conference staff for all of your hard work, giving birth to this new beginning. Thank you all. Our next item of business is to consider a resolution for anti-racism training. This resolution was shared with you in the email. And so I hope that you all had a chance to review the resolution. And I invite Alan to give the brief presentation.
Okay, all of you received the letter. I'm just going to read it to you again. The resolution on anti-racism training for the authorized ministers and the Southeast Association of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference. Annual business meeting of the Southeast Association in 2020. Faithfully submitted by the Southeast Association Committee on Ministry. Whereas God, in accordance with the teachings of the prophets, intends for the church to be a community that does justice, loves kindness, and walks humbly with God, and has called the church through the ministry of Jesus to love our neighbors as ourselves. And whereas the United Church of Christ at the 2003 General Synod adopted the resolution to be an anti-racist church that encouraged all conferences and associations and local churches of the United Church of Christ to adopt anti-racism mandates, including policy that encourages anti-racism programs for all United Church of Christ staff and volunteers. And whereas the Southeast Association includes the region of Marion County and the city of Indianapolis, and the city of Indianapolis unanimously adopted a special resolution on June the 4th, 2020, declaring racism as a public health crisis, and the American Public Health Association and the United States Office of Disease Prevention find racism to be a barrier to health equality and named racism as a driving force reduced health outcomes. And whereas the Indiana-Kentucky Conference of the United Church of Christ at the 2020 annual gathering adopted the resolution, Systematic Racism, that includes creating an IKC Justice and Witness Ministry Task Force in response to the recognition that because the impact of racism on all people and the interconnection among oppression, we realize we need to make an institutional commitment to end racism. This plan includes, among other things, an initiative to include anti-racism training for all authorized ministers who seek or maintain standing in the IKC. And whereas racism operates on systematic, institutional, and interpersonal levels, all of which operate throughout the time and across generations. And whereas an important step toward becoming an anti-racist church is to confess our own participation in the systematic sin through prayerful examination of our biases and prejudices, which lead us to exclude persons of color in multiple areas of church life and leadership, such as search and call, pulpit supply, the work of the association, conference committees, and event planning. And whereas we recognize that many ministers and leaders of the United Church of Christ are unprepared to navigate conversations about race, that we are responsible for equipping them to do so by setting educational and professional standards of ethical accountability, and that a number of church bodies already require such training for the maintenance of ministerial standing. And therefore, be it resolved that all active authorized ministers who desire to seek and maintain standing with the Southeast Association of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference of the United Church of Christ be required to participate in Southeast Association approved anti-racism training in addition to the boundary training requirements for standing. And be it finally resolved that congregations and other employers are encouraged to show their support for anti-racism training by allowing time off with pay for their ministers to receive this valuable training. Funding. The funding for this implementation will be offset by registration fees. Consequently, there will be no adverse financial impact on the operational budget of the association.
Thank you, Alan. This resolution comes to us from the Committee on Ministry of the Southeast Association. And so I think we can move forward with a motion and then a discussion.
Hey, Steve, turn your microphone off.
Sorry. Actually, if the committee brings the motion forward, there doesn't need to be a second.
very good. So now we will open for discussion.
Sarah, this is Terry Daniel. A point of clarification. Am I in a position to vote at this point or not? And I guess I don't
would
know
say
if Mark
yes.
is.
What
Okay,
is the will of the body?
Yes.
I see nods,
Yes.
thumbs up.
Okay.
Yes, by golly, you're one of us. You may make your historic first vote. So other discussions about this resolution?
Not about the resolution, but the quorum for ecclesiastical councils is different than an association meeting, and I think we actually had a full quorum for the ecclesiastical council. We may want to note that.
Thank you. That's excellent. Other comments or questions about the resolution before us to require anti-racism training for anyone who wishes to have standing or maintain standing in the Southeast Association?
Yeah, Sarah, I have a question. This is Jana Myers from St. John in Cumberland. I'm wondering, do we have any idea what this training will look like? I was part of annual conference and I'm very much in support of requiring members of the clergy to retain and gain standing to have this, but I'm wondering like what it's actually gonna look like. Like how, I wanna make sure that we don't just say we're gonna do it and then don't actually have something for it. Like, is there a trainer that we are accompanying as a recommendation to this resolution? Is there a program that other denominations are using? Are there any next steps that are already in place, or are we making this resolution and then beginning the next steps? I guess it's maybe a process question.
Yeah, Reverend Chad Abbott, our conference minister, will speak to that.
Yes, Jana, that's a great question. And the answer is, at this moment, the board of directors for the Indiana-Kentucky Conference has met and has begun its work on designing the justice and witness team that was a part of the resolution at the annual meeting. You should all be getting an email next week about that. Once that team is in place, it is part of their scope of work to put together the anti-racism training modules. We aren't sure exactly what that will look like. There are a variety of options, from materials from the Sacred Conversations to End Racism at the national level to other things that are outside of our United Church of Christ scope. But I think you can at least rely on that team to be providing some sort of training for associations, because you all will be the first association to vote on this after the annual meeting. So I meet with association presidents next week. We'll be discussing when their fall meetings will be and when they're going to be discussing this exact same conversation at their meetings. But our hope is probably by the end of the year, we'll have some sense of what that training will look like and when it will first be offered.
We want to put anything in our resolution about like an effective start date then? Because if anybody, like in the case of Terry, if Terry's transferring standing, or I mean, he's our newest clergy person as of like 5 minutes ago, right? So like this, I guess I'm just wondering, will his standing be held up because now we're gonna say you have to have anti-racist training, but we don't have it ready yet. So do we wanna have an appendix or an addition that just sort of says, this will begin in 2021, this begins once we have direction from the conference, this begins whenever, just so there's some sort of, we hold ourselves accountable to doing it.
Thank you. Those are great process questions. But since we are the first association to enact this, as you know, the conference can strongly urge associations, but they can't require associations. And so we wanted to go ahead and accept this requirement. I am curious what others think. I am open to entrusting the Committee on Ministry to sort out the details in terms of the timing and working with the conference to plan the training itself, rather than figure out all those important details during this time, that the Committee on Ministry would do that work. It's sort of fluid because since we are working with the other associations and the conference, we'll have to work together on the timing and on the details. Joey.
So maybe just so we're being clear in our own documentation, we ought to have an amendment somewhere, and maybe in the first therefore, that we empower the committee ministry to put this into practice. So we sort of listing what the next steps is, which is the committee ministry then figures out what the other steps are. That was worded poorly, but.
Maybe we can say in our, therefore, whereas we resolve to, in conjunction with our committee on ministry and conference staff, to move forward with this. But it just feels like I just want to make sure we do it, team. It's super important, and I would love if we just were able to highlight so that our next meeting, when we're able to come together again and we say, hey, here's what we said we're going to do. This starts in March. Everybody get it on your calendars, because this is one of the biggest concrete steps that we can take for local congregations, which effectively is the biggest concrete step we can take to help change the face of Indiana. So,
do you have specific language, Jana, you can type in the chat, or is there a way to kind of specify the addition to the resolution so we're all on the same page? Or if anyone else wants to give it a try.
Yeah, right. Anybody can do it. I do not know
what the exact language is.
I would just add that the resolution does not cover procedures. So I think that if the end of this, we just, as a group, call for the Committee on Ministry to proceed. Once this resolution has passed, then you can authorize them to proceed and let it go at that, rather than try to adjust the resolution to include details that go beyond the resolution itself.
That sounds great to me.
Okay, Janet, that's agreeable to you, gets to the heart of your intentions. Okay, very good. That was a good discussion. Other questions or comments? And then I see in the comment, we can have an accountability that will come through the Committee on Ministry, and we'll expect to hear an update in the report from the COM. Very good. I think we might be ready to call the vote. Seeing no more questions or comments.
Sarah?
Yes, wait, Mary Jane?
Do you want all lay people as well as pastors to vote on this? Or should this be something the pastors are voting on?
Everyone votes.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll have a poll vote, and if that's not accessible to you, please vote in the chat.
Point of order. Did we agree that Terry could vote on this?
Yes, we did.
Great. Okay.
Yes, the motion is to adopt the resolution on anti-racism training for authorized ministers of the Southeast Association of the Indiana-Kentucky Conference.
It's off again.
Okay, we have 30 of 32 with Terry and Mark voting. That seems consistent with the results that we've had, and I see 2 yeses in the comments. So I'm going to end polling.
100% approve of this historic resolution. Now our work begins. Thank you all. Our next item of business is looking at the leadership of the Committee on Ministry. We are transitioning our leadership, and so I want to invite either Peter or Mary Jane to discuss nominations for the Committee on Ministry.
Peter is still the chairperson at this point. So I would think that he would want to do that.
Yeah, sorry, just give me a minute. I didn't, wasn't prepared to speak on that, but I can. Yeah, we do have a, just one second. We do have several, couple people who have, will be stepping down this year, including myself, after a couple of 3-year terms. And for myself, and we have a person who's leaving a little bit early. And so we do have 3 slots that are available for the for COM members, and 2 of them we do have. We do have 2 people who have said that they were willing to serve. I believe it was we have Terry Lloyd, who
Right.
Mary Jane can speak to her, and also Hannah Adams Ingram has said she is willing to serve as well. We do have 1 additional open slot open for nomination. Yes, nomination for the virtual floor if we wish. So that would be, unfortunately, we didn't have a physical paper roster of anything at this time, because at the time we weren't exactly sure of who would be agreeing to the nomination. But that is where we are right now. So I suppose we can open it up to if there's anyone additionally who would like to be nominated.
Peter, could you go through the clergy versus layperson count?
I don't have that right in hand. However, I believe we are in need. We do have currently we have 1 clergy, 1 lay who are on the slate, and I believe we are in need of an additional clergy, and I think we have enough in terms of lay people.
Peter, I have a question. I believe my term is up, just like yours is this year.
I thought you had 1 more year, Alan.
I'm 2020.
Hmm.
So I'm off. That means I'm off the committee, or I signed up for more, or am I a vacancy that you're looking at?
Hmm. Yeah, and well, if you're, yeah, Alan, I thought your number was still 2021. Maybe I'm in, but I think you've had 1 term.
Peter, I'm looking at last year's minutes and it says 2020 for Alan on last year's.
I might have said that wrong, but so I suppose if Alan was that, I believe we have 3-year terms, so I guess either he's he can re-up for a second term if he wishes.
At this time, I'd be willing to serve 1 more year. I don't know what the future holds. I'm getting old.
Yeah, Peter, this is Don Zabel. There's always been a question whether I was filling an unexpired term or whether I was getting a full term of my own when I first came on in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So they got me in the latest thing that I saw in your report. You have me ending in 2020. I'm willing to go on for another term if that'll help you all.
That would be appreciated. I think I must have the numbers on incorrectly, but.
So Alan and Don are both going to continue? Yay.
So I guess
Alan for 1 year.
Yeah.
Alan for 1 year, not 3.
Okay, 1 year. And if there are any additional, yeah, you can't nominate somebody who hasn't said yes, but you know. But
If somebody
anyone
wants to
wishes-
volunteer.
Yeah.
Come on.
Thank
quickly.
you. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for those who have agreed to serve the association and the Committee on Ministry. So we can call for a vote to have Alan and Don continue to serve and to have Terry Lloyd and Hannah Adams Ingram join in a new 3-year term. And there will be a poll again to accept the nominations. You can vote using the poll feature or the chat. The motion is to accept the slate of nominees for the Committee on Ministry.
Okay, we have 27 of 31 in the poll, and I'm seeing 2 in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and end polling. Oh, there we got one more. 28 of 31 in the poll.
The motion passes to approve 100%. Thank you all for your willingness to serve and blessings in your leadership and ministry among us. We now will be looking at our officers for the Southeast Association. The openings are in the position of registrar and of treasurer. And currently, Mary Jane serves as our registrar and Margie serves as our treasurer. And by the grace of God, both have agreed to serve another term. And so they are willing to be reelected in those 2 roles. Is there any comments or discussion about reelecting Mary Jane and Margie? I have 1 more year as a president and Steve has another year as the vice president. Seeing no comments or questions, we can call for the vote. And again, that's a poll vote, or you can vote using the chat feature.
Okay, I'm seeing 27 of 31 in the poll and 1 vote in the comments. I will go ahead and end the poll.
Motion passes. Thank you so much to Mary Jane and to Margie for your leadership in our association. Very good. Blessings on your term. The next item of business is an update to our bylaws, and this is very necessary during this time of online church and online communication. Currently, there's a section of our bylaws that requires postal service communication. That is both expensive and it's not very environmentally friendly. and it takes more time. And so the new language that the executive committee is encouraging, I put it in the chat, but I'll read it out loud. So this is a vote to update the bylaws to grant use of electronic communication. And the suggested language comes to us into section 6 of the bylaws. And this is the new language that we are suggesting. Issue all announcements to the association members for all business meetings, ecclesiastical councils, services of recognition, and authorized ministries. An announcement to any business meeting, ecclesiastical or service. It's the current language must be deposited with the U.S. Postal Service. So that's the current language. But we want to change it to say communicated electronically or via mail as necessary to all churches and ministers with standing within the association. So the change in the language is to say that it can be communicated electronically or via mail as necessary. So it gives us the flexibility.
Sarah, if
Yeah.
I may speak to that, just so people understand the impact. For one ecclesiastical council, it costs us $110.50 to send out the paper information 30 days ahead. This way it would give us more time. We could still send it out 30 days ahead, but then people could read it online or print it out if they care to do so. So it would save the association a lot of money. And also make it so that we could update things more easily rather than having to send out another mailing if things changed.
Sarah, if you need someone to make that motion,
I do. I need a motion maker.
John Heckman will do that.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll
Don
second.
Zabel, I'll second.
Who was the second?
Don Zabel.
Oh, Don, thank you. And now any discussion about this update to the bylaws?
I just want to say that would be a welcome change for me. I don't like getting a big envelope full of stuff to read. I'd much rather get it electronically, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Just another
Does
comment.
mean, oh, Alan?
Just another comment. This is way past due. We live in an age of electronics. It's about time we just flat out update it.
Amen. We also need to do our part to update Mary Jane with our preferred email address. Unfortunately, you know, these lists are always changing, and we're sorry if we miss people with email communication. So both let Mary Jane and Rebecca in the IKC office know the best email to use for you and your church leadership. Any other questions or comments, discussions? Okay. You call the vote. We'll be voting to amend the bylaws. Motion to approve changes to the Southeast Association bylaws to allow for communication of business to come before the Southeast Association to include electronic means. And the exact language is in the chat, and it was emailed to you. Vote in the chat or in the poll.
Okay, we have 28 of 31 in the poll, and I see one vote in the chat. I'm going to end polling now.
Approved 100% to move into the 21st century. Amen. Great job, everyone. This is really exciting to be all on the same page in this way of being church. So thank you all. The next item of business has to do with the covenant relationships between local churches and the Southeast Association. Just as churches feel called to join in covenant, churches also feel called to leave the covenant. And so we have before us the request for 2 congregations who have requested by letter to withdraw their standing from the Southeast Association of the United Church of Christ. And for both of these local churches, it was discerning a call out of the denomination, feeling that they were no longer in alignment with the United Church of Christ. And so those 2 congregations are St. Jacob's in Sunman. Is that how it's pronounced? St. Jacob's? And the second church is St. Peter's UCC of Clem's Corner. So they have requested that they no longer be in covenant and no longer be part of the Southeast Association. And so we will need to have a vote to accept their request to withdraw membership. So I'll need a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion.
I'll move that we accept there.
Mary Jane makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds. And any discussion? Alice?
I'm just curious, have these discussions gone through the Committee on Ministry with these churches? I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I'm just wondering.
I think we can have our committee speak to that. The communication tends to go through the Committee on Ministry. Also, I know our conference office, Reverend Chad Abbott, has worked with the congregations as well. So this is more of a formality at this point.
Yes, Committee on Ministry has worked with them.
Any other questions or comments before we call the vote?
Alice, from a conference staff point of view, Monica Willett, our search and call associate conference minister, has worked with both congregations. Both of them, as Sarah indicated, their reasoning, they were also both in times of transition. So they were, as they were transitioning out of pastor, they discerned what Sarah was describing, and they were in communication with the conference staff. So.
Can you say in what way they felt out of alignment with the UCC, Chad? Or is that too personal?
Well, I think that I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I also think that Monica is not present, who had those conversations with them. But my assumption from what I know from my own conversations with Monica is that it was more over the progressive nature of the denomination, that they did not fit into those categories, and wanted to be more in alignment with who they were as a more conservative congregations.
Any other discussion or comments? Thank you, Chad. Okay, well, can call the vote. So you can vote on the polling option or in the chat. The motion is to accept requests to remove standing of 2 churches from the Southeast Association and the UCC. It's St. Jacob's UCC of Sunman and St. Peter's UCC of Clem's Corner or Brookville.
Okay, we have 27, or now 28 of 31, and 2, let's see, 2 in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and end polling.
100% approve of this motion. And so as we approve this, we do so with prayers for the congregations and best wishes and blessings to those faith communities. At this time, that ends the business we had on our agenda. Thank you all for your perseverance and your participation. I do want to see if there are any new business items to come before the body at this time. I don't see anyone jumping up and down with new business.
Oh, no, I do have a question.
Okay, John?
Last year, when we accepted the Shelbyville Church, we were reminded to, when we send the letter accepting their withdrawal, to remind them they're no longer connected with the 501c3. I would suggest we do that again.
Thank you. Yes, point taken. Duly noted. Any other items for our business considerations? Okay, we do want to take a moment at the end of this meeting to remember those in our association who have served faithfully, whether as lay leaders or clergy. And so we do want to take a moment to give God thanks for faithful servants, perhaps members of your church who in this past year, those in our Southeast Association. So we take just a moment of silence to remember and give God thanks for those who have faithfully served. I also want to celebrate Peter Fry's leadership, his excellent service to the Southeast Association through the Committee on Ministry, very faithfully led us during this time. And so we celebrate you, Peter, and give thanks. Thank you so much. We also want to honor our chaplains. We're mindful that the global pandemic has created so many challenges for all of us. And so we especially want to celebrate those who serve on the front lines during the pandemic, nursing homes, hospice facilities, hospitals. I know many of you are in relationship and covenant in your congregations with chaplains. And so we want to give them our heartfelt gratitude and to continue to pray for their safety and well-being. Peter, did you have any other comments during this time of honoring and celebration?
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for the mention, but I also just celebrate, all of the, a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes, and that goes for all of these things. I mean, it goes for the work I've seen with Committee on Ministry, the work I've seen from all the clergy and all of those who are doing both in church and non-parish ministry. It is just, especially at this time, it is amazing the work that everyone is doing, the flexibility that people have had in a very difficult time to allow for people to experience the presence of Christ in ways that are, in many ways, they're have just coming from and bubbling up from just the situation that we're in. So certainly I celebrate that. And I would actually, if we have some time, I would, if everyone is amenable to this, I would like to invite, if there are those who are have certain celebrations they would like to just kind of lift up a couple minutes of, or also those who are in non-parish ministry, if they are here. I can't catch everybody's name and everybody's face on here, to share a little bit about their locations and their experiences, if we're amenable to taking a few minutes of that time.
We have several who are not on the video, but who are have voice, who are chaplains. And so if any of you who are still on this meeting would like to share a word with us about your work.
Hi, I'll say something. So if you don't know me, I'm Hannah Adams Ingram. I'm the chaplain at Franklin College. And obviously the pandemic is just as weird for higher education as it has been for parishes. It's got its own challenges. So much so that I don't quite know what to say, except for we appreciate your ongoing support and prayers as we look ahead to so far bringing students back this fall and trying to do it safely, and finding ways to continue to minister in creative and innovative ways. For me as a chaplain, something I'm concerned about this fall is not just COVID-19, but the increasing rates of anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, substance abuse. These things get worse with isolation. It gets worse with high levels of anxiety about change. And I'm not sure our students realize yet that this fall will be very different no matter what, even if we're able to come back to campus. So I appreciate your ongoing prayers as we work in that realm. But I'm also excited to see kind of what students come up with to continue to support each other, because students are resilient and creative and they are a blast to work with. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Hannah. And Hannah has been nominated and approved to be on our Committee on Ministry. And so we're grateful for your service with the association and for your good work with the students. We will now conclude our meeting with a few words from the Reverend Chad Abbott, our conference minister, and he will close us with prayer as we adjourn our meeting. So we will wrap up by 4:30. So we have about, Chad, 8 minutes to hear from you and to conclude our time together.
All right. Hopefully I won't take 8 minutes. It's wonderful to be with all of you, friends. And on behalf of your conference staff, our two associate conference ministers, Monica Willett and Tony Hawkins, as well as Rebecca Braganza, who's in our office now celebrating her 25th year with us. We're so grateful for each and every one of you in the Southeast Association. So thank you for just a brief moment. And my first word is going to be to the folks of Metanoia Church of Transformation. Welcome. We're so glad that you are with us. I have had the privilege of working with you all a little bit with the New Church Start Committee, and has really been a joy. We had some of you come with us to the border actually this past January, and it was a gift to have you with us. And now it is official, so welcome, and we're grateful that you're with us. I think I'm just also, there are two things that I wanted to mention, and they both come from our annual meeting, and they're both, I've heard both of them expressed in this meeting as well. And that is, there is significant energy in the conference, not just Southeast Association, but across the conference around issues of anti-racism, as well as the mental health challenges of our clergy and laity as we lead through this time of the pandemic. And so I wanted to share just briefly a little bit about both, and then we'll pray together. With the anti-racism training, I think I shared with you just briefly before that the Justice and Witness task forces in the process of being developed. So you should receive an email this coming week. If any of you, we need, the resolution actually calls for at least one person from every association. So if you are feeling led from this association to participate in that, we are putting together a plan that will be presented to the board before the next annual meeting. And so you can pray. If you don't feel called to actually be on that team, you can pray for those that are gathering and discerning how to move that forward. And then once they have a way to move forward, then I really encourage each of you as clergy and then all of our local churches to find ways to be engaged, because now is the time. In terms of the mental health of clergy, Sarah mentioned the need for us to discuss a little bit about peer support. We have heard from several clergy across the conference, as well as through some of our surveys. We've done 2 surveys now, the executive board for the board of directors for the conference have put together 2 surveys now, one early in the pandemic and one here back in June. I want to give a huge shout out to Jill Olinger, who is our board president, who is Southeast Association, and on this call, my goodness, all the work that she has put in, that committee has put in to making sure that our churches are safe and feel supported has been remarkable. So thank you, Jill and committee, as well as the staff has really worked hard at trying to do our best. We will continue to do that because this continues to go on. But one of the things we found in talking with clergy, as well as listening in our surveys, was that finances were not a huge issue at this point, at least, which is I'm grateful for. But as Hannah kind of named, the continuing isolation brings on anxiety and depression and mental health concerns of our clergy, and that was very high and very clear in all the data that we have received from you all. We had a high return rate, so we know that this is a significant concern. So what we are working on at this point is, well, actually, before I talk about that, the WISE team for the conference put together, as a result of that, the executive board asked them to put together some spiritual care teams that reached out to active clergy to pray with them and just to check in with them, and also offer meals to our chaplains on the front lines. And we are clear now, as we're almost 5 to 6 months into this, that the phone calls are good, but we need something more long-term and sustainable. And in the United Church of Christ, the clergy communities of practice is one way that there are peer support opportunities for clergy to share intimately, vulnerably with colleagues and find the kind of emotional and mental health support that they need to continue in their work. And do so with resiliency. So the staff has already begun work with both the WISE team as well as the national setting, with the blessing of the executive committee of our board, to begin developing community clergies of practice. In that light, we have already received a grant of $5,000 to do that, as well as develop a clergy convocation focusing on clergy mental health, particularly anxiety and depression in the midst of COVID. So both of those events will happen. Both of those projects will be happening in the coming months. We're getting facilitators trained in the next 2 months from our national setting, and the Southeast Association will be one of the associations we will be focusing the piloting on. So there'll be at least 1, if not 2, clergy communities of practice from Southeast. We're going to be doing a couple more that will be more affinity related. Like I know, for example, one is going to be a chaplain group. So we're working on trying at least to start with 4, if not 5, total groups in this first year. And we're hoping to have enough funding to do both that and to do the clergy convocation on mental health. So that is forthcoming, and I'm very excited about it. I'm grateful for Sarah's leadership, who has also been instrumental in pushing us in that direction, but also, again, back to Jill and the work that committee has done in developing the data to get us there. So that's where we are, Sarah. I'm deeply grateful to continue to be serving as your conference minister. And as we move forward, part of where we are, we talk about this at St. Peter's in Carmel all the time. We are in this liminal space where the future is very unknown. We have no end in sight of this pandemic, but we continue to pray for you weekly, daily, for your clergy, for your lay people, as you continue to serve in the various ways God has called you in your communities. And with that, as we conclude our meeting, I hope you will just join me in prayer. Let's pray together. O loving Creator, you have bound us together in covenant to love and serve like your Son, Jesus. We have churches as far south as Rising Sun and as far north as Carmel on the north side of Indianapolis. And together, we are one part of that covenant. We are urban and we are rural and we are suburban. We share in communities across this state that need your love and compassion. We are settings that serve in hospitals and in universities and in conference offices. And your ministry thrives in helping others through those communities of care. As we go forth from this meeting, having welcomed a new church, having affirmed the need for mental health care of clergy, having affirmed the need for us to train clergy in anti-racism work, having been aware that we are releasing 2 congregations, we give you thanks, God, that you have been here all along and that your Spirit has enlivened us to continue to serve. Bless each person that is here this day and guide us on our way. Bless your world, oh God. For there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of things that we're unsure of in this time of pandemic. Give us wisdom, provide us with strength and resiliency to make it through this time. Help us to rely on one another in times of needed strength. Most of all, help us to rely on your Spirit and in your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chad, so much. We have a Committee on Ministry meeting this Tuesday, and so our work continues. Would someone share a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Meeting adjourned. Go with God's love, blessings, and peace.
Hey, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.